Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
Hello and welcome to this Friday edition of Race to Power. I'm Ananya Datta. Let's start talking politics. Tonight we are going to perform a post-mortem of what led to the defeat of Kamala Harris. We have two important voices joining us from America to decode it for you. Also, Sri Lankan President played his first game pool just days into the job. He announced parliamentary elections on November 14th. So as he looks for economic recovery, will he get the mandate to do that? We have a report coming in shortly. This period in US politics is often called the lull period, where the president becomes a lame duck, the people slowly move from the election chaos to the festive season, and the incoming president is still rejoicing in his victory. But amid this sits a defeated Democratic Party, and within it, Kamala Harris. We are going to decode 5 reasons why the Democratic Party lost this election. 107. That's how many days Harris was tasked to do 3 major things. 1. Say yes to become the Democratic presidential nominee. 2. Put together a national campaign team. And 3. Win the election. No one in the history of US elections has had to do these 3 Herculean tasks in the matter of just 100 days. Harris took the campaign baton from Biden at a time when he was increasingly unpopular, not only as a presidential candidate but as the President of the United States. An April Gallup poll suggests that Biden was the least popular president in 20 long years. On top of that, Harris couldn't distance herself from Biden's unpopularity. She did get chances, but she was always cautious of portraying the Democrats as united. It came at a cost, her presidency. Then came the real issue, bread and butter. Experts say this election was testament when you are unsure of your next meal, democracy and reproductive rights take a back seat. A new type of voters emerged this time, who we have been calling as the paradoxical voters. People who support abortion, support feminism and democratic values, but will have willingly voted for Trump on the national level. Blacks, Latinos and Arabs, a demographic that has traditionally been blue, this election turned their backs on the Democrats. The war in Gaza saw the Arab American distance themselves from the Democratic Party, and Kamala Harris was the direct target. Because at the end of the day, she is part of an administration that has supported Israel without any questions asked. Then came the black and Latino voters. Amid the rhetoric and racism, voters from these blocs chose the economy, particularly the men. And at the end of the day, it all came down to the number game. Harris couldn't guard the famous blue wall that Biden worked so hard to fight back in 2020. And for someone who talks about building walls, Donald Trump demolished it. The Republican won Michigan, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, not leaving any chance for the Democrats to win. In fact, Donald Trump is on course to become the first presidential candidate to win all swing states of the election year. And to get us some perspective on this story, Elizabeth Loris is joining us on this broadcast from Washington, D.C. Ms. Loris is a professor at University of Mary, Washington, and president of E. Loris Consulting. Ms. Loris, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
You know, you were the first person on this broadcast to tell us that American voters are not one-issue voters, and that's something we saw play out in this election. I would quickly tell you 3 points that I noticed. White women's traditional support is still with Donald Trump, 52% to be exact. Trump did better with young women than in the 2020 election, and Kamala Harris lost support among Latino women. Your assessment post-election?
Yes, it is interesting that actually Harris, you could say, lost much of the women's vote. Many more women voted for President Biden in 2020 than they voted for her in 24. And, you know, again, of course, the Democratic Party really played up like the threat of losing, abortion. But a lot of people realize now that's at the state level. Since the Dobbs decision, that's at the state level. And there were a lot of initiatives on state ballots that protected a woman's right to an abortion, and they did vote for those. And so, but the more immediate issue right in front of them was the economy, crime that has come from illegal immigration. We cannot ignore that the largest pool of victims of crime carried out by illegal aliens are women. And so they voted to protect their sisters, their mothers, their daughters by voting for President Trump, whereas the Harris administration didn't seem like it was going to depart from the Biden administration that pretty much treated the U.S. southern border like an open sieve and just people were flooding through. At least that was the optics. So it was the economy, immigration, and crime were the big issues that swung them over enough to vote for President Trump.
Right. I also found a poll. In fact, that's 2 years before the elections. It was an NYT poll, and it found that 26% of the Democrats wanted Joe Biden to return to the White House or rerun for the Democratic camp. That's actually 3 out of 4 Democrats who wanted a new leader. Rest is history. We know Joe Biden still ran for the Democratic ticket, and then after that, Kamala Harris was left with only 107 days to fight for a campaign. Do you agree with those experts who are saying that Democrats need to do some soul searching?
Oh, yes, very much so. Democrats, many Democrats are saying there was a problem with the messaging. Maybe we didn't get the message out clearly enough, but it's not a problem with the message. It's a problem with their platform. You know, look, Harris as a candidate raised record numbers of campaign cash for her war chest. She had over $1 billion. Trump didn't have that amount of money, and she raised it very quickly. I don't know if you remember that when President Biden endorsed her, when he said, I'm stepping out of the race, and he endorsed her, she made a record amount of money within 24 hours. So they had a lot of cash on hand to use. I know the time was short, but she had Hollywood moving behind her. A lot of titans in industry were behind her. And so it's not as if she was terribly handicapped. Her biggest problem really was, saying on that show, The View, that she couldn't think of anything she would do different from Biden. And yet her campaign message was change. It's time for change. Well, when you're already in the administration and you're essentially running for a second term, that's not a message that's going to carry you. And so she was not clear on her policy. She was talking about like an equity and opportunity economy and okay, but what does that mean when I'm paying, $3 for toothpaste that I was paying $1.50 for, just 2 years ago? And so it wasn't just the message, but there wasn't meat on the bones that convinced people that they would be better off with her than they were with Trump.
And most of the voters are agreeing to you when you say that. While I was writing the cover story tonight about the reasons why Kamala Harris lost, there was one thing that kept coming to me, and that was sexism. While I didn't find any polling or statistics to suggest that, so I have to ask you, do you think sexism played a part on the people not to choose Harris?
I do not. Certainly, the Trump campaign focused on the younger male vote and the Black male vote. White men and white women very often have voted overwhelmingly for Democrat. I think that it was the policies. People could see the direction that the country was going, and she did not have a good plan for a good way to go. A lot of people voted for Hillary Clinton back in 2016. She won the popular vote. And so I don't think that sexism is a good explanation. I think that, again, when you get down to the fundamentals of the direction of the country, people just weren't convinced that she was the right person to lead the country in this new direction, this better direction.
All right, Ms. Laura, it's always good to speak to you. Thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast.
Thanks for having me.
Now, the stage is set for a Trump presidency in America, and if reports are anything to go by, the Republican leader is wasting no time in building ground to implement his policies, especially on immigration. At an interview to NBC News, the president-elect revealed that there will be no price tag to the expense incurred for carrying out what Trump has previously called the largest mass deportation in American history. The impending policy shift under Trump's administration has many immigrant communities and leaders worried, and as U.S. awaits policy implementation and ramifications of Trump's second presidency, several leaders and top advocates are preparing to fight back against mass deportations. California's Attorney General, in his public address, has promised to provide any and all legal assistance to immigrants in the state.
I can promise to the undocumented immigrant community in California that I and my team have been thinking about you for months and the harm that might come from a Trump administration 2.0. We have planned for you. We have prepared for you.
According to the Department of Homeland Security, there are approximately 11 million undocumented immigrants in the country, and as of 2022, those are the figures. A report by the American Immigration Council estimates that Trump's deportation project can cost at least $315 billion. But for Donald Trump, no cost seems to be too high. And to get us the latest, viewers, Carolyn Presutti is joining us live from Florida. Carolyn, good to see you again. Now that Donald Trump is going to return to the White House, how are we looking at his plans when it comes to the mass deportation logistically and also funds-wise?
Well, that remains to be seen. We do have a couple more details, though, on that mass deportation. Apparently, we're looking at about 1 million people a year to be deported. Now, the question is, how do you find them? Apparently, the president-elect is going to enlist the help of diplomats worldwide, the military here in this country, and other government agencies to round up undocumented immigrants and then return them to their country. Also, one of the people who is rumored to be getting on the future cabinet list is Stephen Miller. Now, Stephen Miller was an aide to President Trump back in 2016 during his first term as the 45th president. And Miller was the one that championed the Muslim ban into the United States. So he is rumored to be assisting with that first week when President Trump gets into office on January 20th to arrange these deportations and just the logistics on how to do that.
Right, there are a lot of questions around his cabinet as well. Who's going to be in it? Who's going to be out? What are you hearing on that front?
Well, the biggest news was the chief of staff that President Trump announced yesterday. It'll be Susie Wiles. And Susie Wiles has been instrumental in politics, especially here in Florida, a lot. She was involved in Ronald Reagan's 1980 win for the presidency, and then she was involved in Governor Rick DeSantis's win here in Florida. She's been involved in many other state political campaigns. But more importantly than that, just recently, she was always on the campaign trail with candidate Trump. She was the one organizing everything. And that's basically what a chief of staff does, right? They're very influential. They coordinate the president's schedule. They coordinate who sees him. They coordinate everything. They're kind of like a go-between between the White House and various government agencies. So they're the gatekeeper for the president. They keep them organized. And that's specifically what Susie Wiles did on the campaign. Now, if you remember on election night when President-elect Trump gave his victory speech not too far from here, he called her to the podium to speak, and she declined. She wants to stay in the background. She said, she waved to the crowd and smiled, but that was about it. Of course, then we didn't know she was going to be chief of staff, but that is important when you're chief of staff, to stay in the background, to not go for the limelight, because, of course, the limelight belongs to the president whenever you're chief of staff. Right. Oh, and you asked about other people.
Yeah.
So Florida Senator Marco Rubio is rumored to be up for Secretary of State. We also have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. up for some health or medical position in the cabinet. Also, we're talking about Elon Musk. He will organize and he will look at all the numbers of the government and find out where to cut government waste. He's going to be the numbers guy, the economics guy in the cabinet. We're not sure about his title yet, but there has been a constant stream of cars going inside and out of Mar-a-Lago, and that is where the president-elect has been secluded since his election win on Tuesday. And those are people vying for these top jobs. He will be filling 4,000 government positions, 1,800 of which, I misspoke, 1,200 of which require Senate confirmation. Now, as you know, the Senate went to a Republican majority, so getting those people confirmed should not be an issue.
All right, Carolyn, I know you've had a busy week. I hope the weekend brings in some respite to you. Thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast and getting us all those updates.
Nice to be with you, even from windy West Palm Beach, Florida.
Absolutely. Stay safe. All right, as Donald Trump gears up for a second term, he has garnered significant backing from a network of billionaires and business leaders. Notable figures like Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and Miriam Adelson have pledged their support, providing not just financial contributions, but also influence within the business and political landscape. Musk, the world's richest person, has publicly aligned with Trump, offering support during rallies and even controversial $1 million giveaways to voters in swing states. Now, these high-profile backers shape the direction of Trump's campaign and could play a pivotal role in his second administration, as our correspondent was just pointing out. Now, Trump's billionaire supporters are not just contributing funds. They are actively positioning themselves for key roles in the second term. For example, Howard Lutnick, CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald and co-chair of Trump's 2024 transition team, is being eyed for Treasury Secretary. Meanwhile, Linda McMahon, who previously served as Trump's cabinet, is a potential pick for Commerce Secretary. With over $1 billion in donations backing Trump's campaign, these influential figures are pushing his policies on deregulation, tax cuts, and border control areas where many align with his economic priorities. This network of business moguls is not just supporting Trump financially, but also shaping his policy priorities. Billionaires like Bill Ackman and Ian Hendricks are vocal in their backing, with Ackman offering insights into Trump's economic vision, which includes tax cuts and deregulation. The combined financial clout of these billionaires strengthened Trump's campaign, with some of them funding his efforts through large donations. As Trump steps in the White House for the second time, their influence could extend beyond campaign contributions, potentially securing them critical roles in the administration. Let's focus to other big stories coming in. Sri Lanka will hold its parliamentary elections on November 14th. The upcoming election may see a majority of new faces in the parliament, especially after a number of long-serving government representatives, including former President Ranil Wickremesinghe, having decided not to contest. The postal voting for the 2024 elections concludes today. According to Sri Lanka's poll body, over 736,000 people are eligible for postal voting. All election campaigns and canvassing for the parliamentary election 2024 will end at midnight on Monday, November 11th. The Election Commissioner requested all the candidates to refrain their family members from doing house-to-house canvassing during the silent period, which is deemed as an illegal act violating the election laws. Over 17 million voters are eligible to cast their votes to elect members of the next parliament that is scheduled to convene on November 21st. The parliamentary elections on 2024 will be a decisive one for Sri Lanka, which elected a new president just in September. Dissolving parliament immediately was one of the commitments that President Anurakumara Dissanayaka made during his campaign, stressing that a new government would be required to reshape the political landscape of the island nation. Now, staying with Sri Lanka as the country heads to parliamentary elections on 14th of this month, a decision seen as a strategic move by new President Anurakumara Dissanayaka to consolidate his political power with a fresh mandate as he looks to navigate a tough economic recovery challenge. Here's more.
Marxist politician Anurakumara Dissanayaka's victory and his swearing in as Sri Lanka's new president marked a big shift in the island nation's politics, away from traditional parties and the political elite. It was a rejection of the old guard that the people accused of taking the country to economic crisis. Dissanayake promised to strengthen the economy and work hard to win people's trust, saying he's no magician. 2 months on, there are signals of the economy stabilizing, supported by an IMF bailout and other reforms. But there's also no denying public anger over continued high inflation, unemployment, and the slow pace of recovery. There's still some way Dissanayake has to go.
At the moment, Sri Lanka faces many issues that span from economic to social and even political uncertainty. I expect a solution-based parliament that is knowledgeable and puts the public first. I also hope they will work on flourishing our resources instead of selling our resources to others.
The law is not equal to all. The younger generation's hopes have been crushed. School children face issues in the education system. No one is satisfied. Even the business community is unsure about the future of their businesses. Corruption is on the rise as well. So I hope they provide solutions for these issues.
The youth of this country deserve a developed nation. A lot of people have financial issues. It is everyone's dream to own a house or a vehicle and move on with life. But that is only a privilege for a few. That disparity must not exist. I'm 100% sure that the president will get a majority support in parliament.
Political analysts have pointed out the call for elections as a strategically thought-out move. Dissanayake knows that numbers in parliament are critical to any forward movement for his agenda, and the sooner the better. For one, Dissanayake looks to ride the momentum. He polled 42.3% in September. He'll be hoping to ride the same wave of approval and consolidate power in parliament. Fulfilling his pro-poor campaign promises of reducing taxes and freeing up public revenue for tax relief will prove difficult without this backing. He'll need parliament support to pass the budget. Numbers in parliament will also strengthen Dissanayake's hand in negotiations with bondholders. Lack of numbers in parliament also meant that he was unable to name a fully fledged cabinet. Harini Amar Surya as PM and Vijeta Herath as a minister is all he has. Again, numbers in parliament are critical to any expansion plans. Can this election act as a repair mechanism for Sri Lanka? Anura Dissanayake has defined his biggest task as being pulling the country out of the current economic crisis with the support of the citizens, and the elections are a critical step forward. It's only the first step, however, perhaps lending him strength for a long road ahead. How Dissanayake deals with the ongoing agreement with the IMF, negotiates with Sri Lanka's creditors, and manages the complex geopolitical area of the Indian Ocean will impact the future of the island nation. Can he win over the first big challenge of the lot?
It is a change of government in Botswana after Duma Boko registered a landslide victory, becoming the new president of the country, kicking out the party in power for nearly 60 years. 54-year-old Boko took oath in front of several thousand people in the National Stadium in the capital. The ceremony was attended by the presidents of other southern African countries including Madagascar, Namibia, Zambia and Zimbabwe. As Boko delivered his speech, former President Masisi, who swiftly conceded defeat a week ago, was also in the audience. Boko, a Harvard-educated human rights lawyer, was notably dressed in a blue shirt and black tie, the colors of the Botswana flag. Started the event by circling the stadium in a vehicle, flanked by galloping white horses and waving to the cheering crowd. Botswana's former president Masisi conceded defeat after his party, which has governed the diamond-rich African country for nearly 6 decades, suffered a resounding defeat in general elections. Now, our correspondent Carlin Ongmu has more on this from Johannesburg.
Newly elected Botswana President Duma Boko was inaugurated at the colourful public ceremony before a capacity crowd at the National Stadium in the capital, Gaborone, this morning. Heads of states from various parts of the world attended the inauguration. Boko made history last week after his party unseated the BDP, who ruled the country for 58 years. The 54-year-old has resonated mostly with the youth, echoing calls for change that would give them opportunities for work and address the large inequality between rich and poor. Boko's government is taking charge of a country with underdevelopment challenges, including massive corruption scandals. Experts have said the task before him is mammoth, but not insurmountable. This is Carlin Ongmu from Johannesburg, South Africa, for WION World is One.
And with that, we're wrapping up this edition of Race to Power. Thanks for watching with me, Anya Datta. Goodbye.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
This week on Check It Out, we show you the world's first wooden satellite. We tell you how Taiwan is preparing the next generation of drone developers. And find out why teenagers want to ditch their smartphones. This and more on WION World is One at these times.
YO1 Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to YO1 Health Resort. Make your reservation at yo1.com.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life.
Weekdays 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Fine Print. My name is Mohammed Saleh, and let's start this broadcast by taking a quick look at what is making headlines at this hour. A plane carrying the Israeli football supporters is being brought home by the government of Israel from the Netherlands. At the Ben Gurion airport, the authorities are condemning a night of football hooliganism that is being dubbed as anti-Semitic violence. The Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof is condemned as a terrible anti-Semitic attack. The football hooliganism in which the Israeli football fans got involved in Amsterdam, and he's declared himself to be deeply ashamed. The Human Rights Watch has said that at least about 30 people have been killed in Mozambique in almost 3 weeks of crackdowns and protests after a disputed presidential election on the 9th of October. The Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, has said that Trump has no power to fire or demote him. This comes as Trump has warned of firing Jerome Powell and has repeatedly called for the president's say on America's monetary policy. The bells of Notre Dame in Paris ring out together for the very first time since the 2019 fire that devastated the historic cathedral. And amidst reports of India's refusal to travel to Pakistan for the Champions Trophy, the PCB has said that it will not adopt a hybrid model for the tournament next year. So Donald Trump's improbable victory in the presidential elections in the United States of America is sending out ripples across the world. And our next story tries to understand as to why Trump's victory is making Ukraine nervous, Europe anxious, and Russia fairly optimistic. Take a look at the sport.
I can tell you, his behavior at the moment of the attempt on his life impressed me. He turned out to be a courageous man. The desire to restore relations with Russia, to help bring the Ukrainian crisis to an end, I think that deserves attention at the very least. And I take this opportunity to congratulate him on his election as President of the United States of America.
That was Russian President Vladimir Putin congratulating Donald Trump on his election victory. Trump has spoken about his good ties with Putin. but Moscow is cautiously looking forward to Trump's presidency, who has vowed to end the war in one day, presumably by forcing Kiev to make territorial concessions.
So we have a very good relationship, and I also have a very good relationship, as you know, with President Putin. And I think if we win, I think we're going to get it resolved very quickly. I really think we're going to get it resolved.
In Kiev, the mood is anxious. Russian forces are continuously marching forward, gaining new territory daily. President Volodymyr Zelensky is urging NATO allies to maintain their unwavering support. Kiev warns that calls for ceasefire for Ukraine is very dangerous and is questioning Trump's rationale.
Currently, I believe that President Trump really wants a quick solution. He wants one, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen.
In Budapest, where European leaders are meeting, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who has warm ties with Putin and is close to Trump, is claiming that Ukraine has already lost the war.